Coaching in Session.
Your exclusive destination for unparalleled personal and professional growth.
With your host, Michael Rearden.
Whether you choose to live within limits or break free, your mindset journey begins here.
Welcome, Sig Muller, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
Terrific. Thanks, Michael. Glad to be here.
Today, we're going to be talking about your motivation work. And I love motivation. I don't know if you know, but we have a motivational video series here. It does quite well for what motivation is, because motivation is, I guess you could say, a temporary type of boost, but it's almost essential in a sense. You have to motivate yourself to get up maybe in the morning to go to the gym, and then eventually that motivation turns to discipline. But you help people be great, maybe through motivation in the beginning, but through, creating long-lasting habits and disciplines, I think is going to be where you truly shine. If you could, can you tell the world who you are, what you do, and how you help? And I'm excited to get into this conversation today with you.
Yeah, you bet. And I like to, Michael, think of it as transformation, right? Transformation, if you look it up, it's a combination of motivation and inspiration, both. But then to your point, it's got to be long lasting, right? It's easy to do something once. We all have New Year's resolutions that a week later we've stopped doing. So you got to make it an imprint and permanent. My story, if anyone remembers what they were doing August 23rd, 2024, people sometimes go look at their calendar. I will always remember. I had the biggest pulse check I've ever had. I died. I had a sudden cardiac arrest and was dead for 8 minutes. And the odds of surviving that are less than 8%. And the odds of being physically and mentally okay are less than 1%. So, some people, I say this jokingly, wonder if I'm mentally okay or not, but I'm blessed to have made a full recovery. And there's thanks to good friends, a lot of life preparation and coincidences or God incidences that are why I'm still here today.
And I'm glad you're here, because if not, we wouldn't have this conversation. And it's so important that we learn from wisdom, because wisdom is so powerful in the sense of we can listen to all these motivational stuff. And I have a playlist on Spotify. It's called Wake Me Up. And in 2018, it was 2017. I would listen to that playlist every morning. And it was my alarm clock. Like, you can set your alarm to play like a playlist from Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. So I had a playlist that I cultivated just for that time. And it was a really rough patch for me. It was me fighting with myself, me fighting with the world. I was very angry. I was like, this is before the business and the podcast and everything. And I was trying to figure out, what do I do? And I leaned on those tapes, and I leaned on the words of others to say, you know what? This inspiration is going to get me up in the morning. So I labeled it Wake Me Up, because that's when I began my day, 4:00 in the morning. I went to the gym, started to change my body, started to influence my mind. And I already had a good, strong mindset. But sometimes in life, very similar to, your date in August, it's a wake up call. And my question to you is, why do so many people wait for that wake up call, that trauma, that hardship, that obstacle to say, hey, wake up, pay attention?
I think it's easy to just fall into complacency. And psychologically, we have 6,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day, which is pretty remarkable. Unfortunately, more than 80% of those thoughts are negative, more than 80% for the average person. And 95% of those thoughts are repetitive. So you're starting from a deficit there with that mindset. And I think it's easy to just be complacent and not challenge yourself to improve, to be better, to just coast along, and getting out of that and realizing you're here for a greater purpose. For me, my death caused me to ask, why am I here? What is my mission? And to change some things.
What is the difference between purpose and mission?
I think it was interesting. Someone stopped me the other day when I was talking to them, and they said, it's interesting you used the word mission. And I said, I really didn't think about it. But mission to me is something from the soul. It's something you're deeply committed to. It's something you're passionate about. I think of it as beyond purpose. I've never looked up the definition of the two and sat them side by side. But mission to me is a greater good. It incorporates, for me at least, a level of giving back and making a difference in other people's lives. Whereas I think you can have a good purpose, but I don't know that means aligning with and helping others and society for the greater good.
Hmm. I don't know if I have a blog on purpose and mission. If I don't, I'm going to write it. I always like to do versus stuff, like comparing two words, because the meaning sometimes is very different.
Yeah.
Like purpose can mean one thing to one person, and mission can mean another thing. And men often, when they give themselves a mission, is much more stronger than a purpose. But when you tie purpose to family into someone else's life, is bigger than the mission. So it's kind of like, like both can be used as a powerful catalyst for change. But if you use it incorrectly, it might not have the impact that one is hoping for. Very similar to how someone might wait for the right time or the right moment. I want to, I need enough money in my bank account. I need to wait for the right team, or I need to wait for the right business idea. And sure, right? That could be what can help the mission become successful. But oftentimes, many people, they wait and they wait and they wait, and it never happens. So then they find themselves to be stuck, unfulfilled, unhappy. And they're just looking for, well, what do I do? And then they're looking for a purpose, because their mission is almost like on the back burner, is postponed because of the rain or something. And regardless of rainy days or not in life, we have to get up, we have to show up. And that's where I would like the conversation to go, is the idea of, when you wake up in the morning, we have a choice to make. We can be something or we can be nothing. We can be the same as we were the day before. We can maybe even try to be worse. But there is the potential that we can always say, today is the day that I create the foundation for the empire that I would like to build.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. I do believe all of us within us, each of us, has the power, capacity, and talents to be the world's best version of ourselves. I think everyone has those abilities within them. We just don't do it too often. I wake up some days and I'm crappy Sig. I don't like crappy Sig. I don't think other people like crappy Sig. So how do I challenge myself to be the world's best version of myself every day? And there's a few things that came out of my death experience that I try and do now. One is called a pulse check. And a pulse check is really simple. For me, it's closing my eyes, it's putting my hand on my heart, taking a few deep breaths with my eyes shut. And people can do that now as they're listening to us. Then you ask yourself two questions. The first question is a what question, and you're marrying the what to the how. So it could be as simple as saying, what am I grateful for today? What am I grateful for today? And then the how is, how am I going to show that gratitude? How am I going to appreciate that gratitude? How am I going to show it to others? And you can think of a lot of what and how questions, but to me, it's what time is it? It's time for a pulse check. And just doing that can help reset your attitude to a better one and get away from those 80% that are negative, And connected to that, I think, is just adopting what I call the attitude of gratitude and walking away from the negativity and surrounding yourself with positive people, right? People that can do with that attitude, and figuring out how do you break some of those old habits, right? What are the triggers for those bad habits, and how do you put in place new triggers that can lead to the habits that you want, that the positive habits.
I think of like life in general, where many people, they want the goodness, right? They want the standing ovations, they want the accolades, houses, the cars. We can name all the things that people want in life, right? But there's a bit of challenge. There's a bit of hardship and fears and uncertainties that come with the aspect of what life is. And as much as I think people don't want the bad things, I believe they're essential. I believe that you have to have the moments of hardship and the moments of fear. And, like they make the moments of good so much more. And I just like to use the example of, imagine if everything was given to you. Like you had the perfect life, right? You didn't have to worry about anything, and everything was just perfect, right? You wanted something, it was there. Eventually you would just become, almost mindless, like dulls, like what purpose is there? What meaning is this? Like, yeah, you got everything, but sometimes the fight makes the journey so much more pleasurable. I just came out with, an episode. It's a little bit ago now, but I say you don't start climbing mountains by starting at the peak, right? You start from the base and you begin climbing. And in a sense, that's life, right? We are babies and we're beginning and we're going through all these emotions, and then we're learning, creating our identity. And then we're going out in the real world trying to figure out what we want to do or who we want to become. For some reason, people, they look at the end goal. And it's very similar, but it's different than Stephen Covey's way of begin with the end in mind. Many people begin with the end in mind. They want the end immediately versus, okay, I'm beginning with the end in mind. So I know what I want, but now I need to reverse engineer and figure out the steps to get there. So many people, they love instant gratification. But then again, the journey is not about instant gratification. It's about taking the steps yourself. And so where would people be if they gave themselves a mindset of enjoying the journey, enjoying the hardships, rather than just looking and wishing for something always great to come them and for themselves?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Before my cardiac arrest, I had a great career, great family. Life was pretty good, and I really got an ass kicking, by dying. And that kind of suffering, to use your point, causes you to reevaluate things and prioritize things, and ask why am I here? And for me, it literally was reinventing myself to help others be the world's best version of themselves.
So during this reevaluation, how were you able to determine what you needed to do? Because many people might give themselves an idea of, I think I need to do this. How were you certain?
That's now I can look at that and say that's a fun question. Wasn't a fun question in the moment. I found myself in the hospital with anterograde amnesia. So what that meant was I couldn't form new memories. So the first 2 days I'm in the hospital, I'm alert. I'm talking to people just like we're having this conversation, but don't remember a thing from those 2 days. So everything I learned was from friends and family. And what I heard was, you were out of your mind. You were talking constantly. You didn't know what you were saying. And I'm like, well, tell me, what did I say? And so, Michael, if you were my phlebotomist drawing blood every hour, you'd come into the room, literally, because I couldn't form new memories. I'd say, hi, what's your name? You'd say, Michael. And I'd say, Michael, you're the world's best. You'd draw my blood and you were awesome at it. You only had to do it once. You didn't have to jab me 5 times. And I'd say, you're the world's best. Thanks. You'd leave and come back in an hour. It was like Groundhog Day. Hi, what's your name? Michael, you're the world's best. Everyone, the doctor, the nurse, family, friends, whoever came in the room, I said, you're the world's best too. And not just once or twice, repeatedly, the whole time they were there. And so when I heard this story in the weeks after, and I'm thinking about why am I here? And I don't know if I'm going to live a day, a week, another year. My father, bless him, he's 95 and still alive. So there's some good genes there somewhere, but it's a scary thing to not know what happened. And I'm reflecting on why the heck did I say, you are the world's best to everyone who came in the room? And I think it was a couple things. I think it was the first time in my life I couldn't take care of myself. I was a Division I All-American swimmer. And the doctors told me afterwards that my hypoxic training and being able to deal with a lack of oxygen maybe is part of why I'm mentally and physically okay. So my way of I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go to the bathroom myself. I couldn't get out of bed. So I had to rely, for the first time in my life, others to take care of me and do everything for me. And I think saying you are the world's best was my way of saying thank you. I appreciate you. You're fantastic, right? Just a different way of saying it. And I think the second reason I said it as I reflected was I knew I was really messed up. Something bad had happened. Somewhere in my brain, I knew that. I didn't know what it was, but something really bad. And I became my own hype man, my own motivational person in the moment. So I knew I needed everyone who came into that room to be the world's best version of themselves, the world's best doctor, the world's best nurse, the world's best friend. For me to be okay, I needed people to show up and be their world's best version of themselves. And so it was almost like I was motivating and pumping people up. I joke that, there were 100 people that worked on the floor and maybe, 5 or 6 that were caring for me. And people were having a bad day on another part of the floor. Someone would say, oh, go see Sig in room 303. He'll make you feel good. So when I heard that story and I put together other things from my life, it really became clear to me that I'm here to help others be the world's best version of themselves and to feel good. And if you are the world's best version of yourself, you improve your life, you improve your happiness, and not only of just you, but those around you, your coworkers, your family, your friends. And that's such an important thing in today's world.
Yeah. I think of, a roundabout way of saying this is the movie Golden Child with Eddie Murphy. I'm not sure if you've ever seen this old movie. And he had wanted this pendant from the child, and the child gave him a different pendant. He was like, "This is not the one I wanted." And the child ran away with his money, and he was basically, or the old man, and he was like, "Give me, what I paid for." But he's walking around with this pendant that eventually one day saved his life. So in a sense, sometimes, the universe does things for us that we might not understand or appreciate at the time, right? You being, that swimmer, possibly could have saved your life, right? Like that could have been the reason.
Right.
So something you did created a good thing for you in the future. And so we have to build on those things, those skills, habits, whatever you want to call it. And I think many people, they would rather not build a skill or a good habit or a discipline, because it is easy to say, you know what, I'm just going to sit on the sofa. And I think one of the reasons why many of the older generations have, it out for the younger generation is because they're trying to take the easy road, it seems like, right? They want to be streamers. They want to get DoorDash and not walk to get their food. They get Ubers and Lyfts everywhere. They
Let
don't know how
alone
to
let
take the
alone cook
bus.
their food.
Yeah. And so they're missing out on a lot of hardship. And I think the roundabout way and the reason why I think they're borderline upset is because they understand that those hardships and those little things, they add up later on, right? They compound. It's like saving $1 a day for 30 years. It compounds, right? And so if you're just saving pennies, or if you're not saving anything, of course there's going to be maybe repercussions for that. And so we look at the life, is like the life expectancy, right? Like it dropped to like 5 or 6 years or something, like recently, like 3 or 4 years ago. And I think the statistics is because many people are living that sedate life. They're being the remote workers. They're just living in their houses, their boxes, and they're not going out. They're not exploring. They're not trying new things. They're not looking for hardship. They're not looking to build skills. They basically went to college and they said, "This is what I am. This is what I'll do." And so there's so much more to life than that. And so my question to you is, how can we encourage the next generation? How can we encourage a populace of people to say, you know what, you are more than your degree. You are more than your generation. You are more than who you are right now.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think some of it we touched on with the idea of gratitude, right? Being introspective and taking a pulse check. One other thing I did, I mentioned I didn't know if I was going to live a day, a week, a year. I still don't know today, right? I don't think any of us know how many more days we have left on this earth. About 2 months before my cardiac arrest, I went fly fishing with my son in Montana. He lives in Billings. And I am learning how to fly fish. I'm not an expert. So he was my Sherpa for the day. Great day. He brought his pastor with us. And the pastor asked me, "Have you ever read the book 4,000 Weeks?" Nope, haven't heard of it. Don't know anything about it. Tell me about it. And he said, "Well, 4,000 weeks is how long you have to live when you're born." Kind of puts it in perspective. It's about 80 years. And when I was figuring out my new mission and why the heck I was still here, I put a stake in the ground. So I'm 59 now. And I said, I'm going to act and behave and live life as though I have 1,000 weeks to live. That's 20 years. I'd be 79. And for me, that was important to create a sense of urgency and meaning, and not, crawl into a shell in my house and worry and fret and live in isolation, and not do all the things that are great in life. If you think about it in terms of 1,000 weeks, that's 20 years. And anyone can do this, right? You can make it 500 weeks and make a 10-year plan. But on my 20-year plan, 1,000 weeks, that's 20 summers. That's 20 Christmases, 20 Easters, 20 family reunions annually. Each one is 5% of what you have left. You have 20 of them. And I think if you can just change your perspective a little bit, that just creates an urgency that can tie to purpose. I will tell you, sitting here today, 1,000 weeks minus 29 weeks, I've got 971 weeks left to live. And I'm going to make a difference with each one of those. That was a big mind shift for me. It's too easy to just let time flow by, right? And be complacent. But if you can find that purpose or mission, Adopt the attitude of gratitude, have some urgency, take time out to do those pulse checks. What's working in your life? Great. What's not working? How do you change that? And make it actionable. At some level, you do have to just commit to change.
The idea of what is working and what is not working is very different, I believe, to different individuals. For example, the younger generation, again, they are very big on social media. Their amount of followers depict
Yeah,
how successful they are.
sure.
Okay, I have all these followers and all these people love me and all these people watch me. And I think, okay, so that is how you are going to label success, right? How many people watch you? And I say, okay, sure, right? So if no one was watching you, you wouldn't feel happy, you wouldn't feel successful. No, no, no. Okay, so let's say you did a career change. Do you want everyone still watching you? Like do you get something from it? And they would say, yeah, because it's validation, right? People validate me. And I said, well, when's the last time you said, hey, let me look at my life. Am I happy with where I'm going? And typically the answer is no. I can't tell you how many people who do social media, they do content and there's all smiles on, like they do, so the camera's going, right? There's smiles. But the moment the camera's off, it's like a frown comes on them, a negative, a shadow. It's insane. It's insane. And typically you see these videos from other people recording the social media person because they think the camera's off, right? Their camera's off, but the world is still watching. And so now they're like, I'm just doing this because I can't stop maybe, right? Or I don't know how to stop. So many people they fall into this this false sense of purpose or this idea of, this is what I'm meant to do in life. And then they will do this for a certain amount of time and either they say, okay, I had enough and they give up, or they decide to say, you know what, like, life is not worth living anymore. And I can't tell you how many influencers decide, that's the path for them because maybe they're not getting likes anymore. Maybe too many people are attacking them now. And you would think, all these smiles and all of these beautiful photos and videos that they post, and everyone in the world is looking at them and they're saying, wow, look at their life. I wish I had that life. But yet they don't understand the pain and the hardships that a person is living. And so my question to you is how would a person know what's true to them and what's not true to them? Because we can see the BMWs and things like that. And we might say, I need a BMW because it makes me, wealthy, or it makes me have that image of being wealthy. I need a big house because, where am I going to live? Or whatever. Like we can go down different avenues, but the question is still, we have this idea of what is perfect, but yet until we experience it or maybe walk into someone's shoes that mile, perfect is not necessarily what we thought it was. Because many people, I'm sure they will say, it would be nice to have all of this money, but then they get all this money, they have all of these problems.
Yeah, so a couple thoughts. I'm a very faithful person. So for me, a lot of purpose and mission can come from my faith. I'm a Christian, so that's Jesus and how he lived and the Bible. So for people that are faithful, I think that's a super important thing. I was talking with a friend just in the last week, and he had a job at a big Fortune 1000 company and was miserable, absolutely miserable, and performing poorly, not getting the work done, told he wasn't performing. And he and I talked about the concept of the grass isn't always greener. It's the perception of the grass. And that can be coveting someone's home, coveting their BMW. It's all in your perspective and attitude in which you view it. And the grass isn't always greener. It's your personal view of the world. And I think that has to come with a confidence in yourself and being able to look at yourself truly and honestly as to what makes you happy. And it's not the same thing as other people. And it's appreciation that you're grateful for what you have. And the grass around you is green. It's not that next job you might want, right? Well, there's gonna be problems at that next job, right? There's gonna be hardships, there's gonna be tough things, there's gonna be a crappy boss, there's gonna be working 80 hours a week, whatever it is. It's a choice to view the grass around you as green and not continue to be envious of someone else's material position. possessions or just a belief that somewhere else it's better, right? Appreciate what you have and strive to do better. Strive to improve yourself. Strive to achieve what you'd like and is truly important to you, your family, you know, your faith, what those things are that are true to your heart.
I 100% agree with you. And then again, it's funny because I can remember being young and naive, right? Naive is, I was definitely that. It's funny when you speak with someone who has many years behind them, right? And they have so much wisdom. And you would hope you would gain something from it, right? But oftentimes when you have that ego and you're kind of saying, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be that lone warrior and I'm going to, fight the battles and I'm going to do everything myself and I'm going to create my own happiness and I'm going to live the perfect life. It's a bit naive in a sense, right? Because we don't necessarily know anything, especially when we're teens. Like I thought I knew everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can ask my 18-year-old self. I thought I knew everything. And sure enough, the more I started to live life, it was a rude awakening at almost every pivotal turn. And it was like, okay, let me pay attention. Let me pay attention. Let me pay attention. And, one of the reasons why we have the podcast is because it's a podcast based on wisdom, of course, knowledge too. But wisdom is so powerful because you can learn from someone else's mistakes rather than having to go and make them yourself. But yet, guess what? So many people, they still follow the same path and they still have the same hardships. And, certain people are like that kid who has to touch the stove, right? Your mom or your dad says, stove is hot. Don't touch your stove. Don't touch your stove. It's hot. And the kid is like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And boom, they touch the stove and it's hot and they get burned and they're crying and they're like, I'm not going to touch a stove again. There's certain people who need to get their hand burned in a sense, as much as I don't want them to, to get their hand burned. I wish people can just say, okay, I'm not supposed to touch a stove. My hand is going to get burned. Thank you for telling me. I'm not going to do that. I think it's easier for adults to do that, to say, okay, that's okay, good information. But for the younger generation, it's almost like the possibilities for them are not based in reason, which can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing because we can look at possibilities and limits, because we can look at Roger Bannister, right? All the scientists, all the families and friends say, you can't do this. And he's like, I think I can. Right. And sure enough, he does it. And everyone else, 2 weeks later is doing it. Right. So it's like, we know it's possible. So many of the younger generation are not so much based on their limitations. They're based on what is possible, even if it's not done before. And so my question to you is, how would a person know what is a limit and where the limits truly are?
Fantastic question. I didn't always know where they were for sure, right? We're all imperfect. I can remember I was, I think, 12 years old and skateboards were really popular in kind of the mid 70s. My father, who was a physician, grew up in Rochester, Minnesota, forbid me to ever ride on a skateboard, right? He said, I see too many people in the emergency room and hospital with skateboard accidents. So the next day, I went out on a skateboard, fractured my clavicle, head first to the ground, shoulder, bone popped through. I walked myself with a friend. He came running down the hill and said, Sig, are you okay? I said, I'll be fine. And he looked at me and he said, no, your bone's sticking through your skin. You're probably not okay. So we walked to the hospital. They came with a wheelchair to get me. And the first thing I said was, you can't tell my father. And we're pretty sure he's going to find out, right? So we're all imperfect. And, you want to learn from others, but you're going to make mistakes. And so I think figuring out that line, I agree with you in the conceptually way easy to learn from others, right? Like that's a goal I've always had. Before I had my own children, I would talk to every single parent I could to talk about what worked, what didn't work. And that was wonderful. I learned a ton before I had my first kid. But then, your kid's on the floor eating dirt, you worry about them eating dirt. And is that okay or not? Even though maybe all your friends said, yeah, let them play in the mud, it'll make them healthier and build their immune system. You still have your own natural interpretation of that. I think one thing that was helpful to me in life was I had really good coaches in my life, coaches and mentors. And if you can find someone that you're willing to listen to and be coachable, makes all the difference in the world. I was blessed to have that athletically. I was blessed to have that in my career. And you just have to be willing to accept it and be coachable and learn. And if you can, I think that really can help shortcut a lot of pain. Not all of it. You're still going to suffer, but it can help.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the be coachable aspect. I like to think of it very similar to planting seeds, right? We plant a seed and we can say, okay, the seed's going to grow tomorrow, right? But the reality is, you have to water it. The seed's going to do what it does. Bamboo sometimes is growing for 10 years before it pops out. So we can say, was the bamboo growing for 10 years or did it just pop out one day and start growing? And I think people, are different seeds in a sense, right? So maybe you are a marigold and you're going to come out in 2 to 3 days, or maybe you're that bamboo. It's going to take 10 years, right? So, like, depending on where you are, you need a different type of nourishment or mindset in a sense, because when someone is coming from wisdom, they're literally giving you a seed. They're saying, hey, like, this is what is possible. If I give you a bag of seeds and I don't tell you what it is, you don't know what it is. But if I tell you, hey, this is a marigold, this is a cucumber seed, and you expect a cucumber, you expect the marigold. But if I just gave you the random bag of seeds, it's a surprise. And not everyone is going to like the surprises, right? Certain people, they want certain things, but you give them what they may not believe they think they need. And so you give them the seeds that might feed them, right? You say, well, I know you're going to be hungry at one point, so I'm going to give you peppers and tomatoes and cucumbers and green beans, and you give them all these seeds, right? And they might not appreciate it that day, but then when their belly is growling, they're going to say, wow, now I understand. And that is the aspect of what wisdom does. It's basically like planting the seed or the tree and understanding that the shade is not for you, it's for your grandkids. And
Love it.
so we think of a forward thinking in the sense of we want to help so many people in the world, navigate so many pitfalls so they don't have to go through the hardships. But we talked about it, right? Some people, they have to go through those hardships. And I always say there's a safe place to do it, right? There's an environment to do it, right? You give yourself good coaches, as you said. You give yourself mentors, guides, people who are going to be there to support you, in a sense, to catch you if you fall. And I was watching a guy, he's a father, he has like 5 kids, he has a lot of kids. And he was talking to his kids, and he was saying, if you ever fail, come back home, right? If you ever need money, come back home, right? If you're ever hungry, come back home. If you are ever insecure, if you're ever alone, come back home, right? He's basically saying you can always come back home, versus the current American mindset. When you're 18, get out of my house. All right. I'm done taking care of you. I'm done paying your bills and washing your laundry and cleaning your room. Again, depending on the person, maybe even depending on culture, where many people think, at some point I'm going to go off and I'm going to fight the world by myself. But then again, they don't look at the pillars, the foundations that they have. So it could be family, it could be friends, it could be coaches and guides and mentors that you say, okay, I'm going to bring you into my circle. And very similar to your story in the hospital when you were telling everyone that they were the world's best. In a sense, we are the accumulation of the people we keep around us. So at some point, you were saying, you are the world's best, and then you're like, I'm in the presence of the world's best. So who am I? I must be becoming the world's best as well. And so this mindset is just the beginning. It's the tip of the iceberg in a sense, where you can become the world's best, but you do have to give yourself the intention. You do have to allow yourself to be coachable. You have to maybe put your ego in the drawer and listen. Turn on the listening ears and turn off the voice. Like they say, communications is not always about speaking, it's about feeling too. And I know if, people were truly listening, and I'm not talking about just the words, but the feeling, the emotion, right? The aspect of who you are and what you stand for. They're going to understand that you want to see them become the best too. And so it's the idea that everyone wants to be good. Everyone wants to win, and everyone has the potential too, but not everyone will dive in. Not everyone is going to take the seeds and plant them, take care of the soil, water them every single day. They just want the end result. But the end result is not going to happen unless you happen to that. So you have to do the work. You have to give yourself the intention to becoming the world's best, a step at a time, a degree at a time. It might not happen overnight. I know we live in a world of instant gratification, but instant gratification is nice and all, but I'm telling you, the journey is so much more fulfilling. If I had a good life that was given to me, I can tell you 100%, I would not appreciate it. 100%, I would not appreciate it if a life was given to me. Oh, money, cars, houses, I would not appreciate anything. All right. The things that I appreciate the most are things that test my faith, test my patience. And I go, now I can pay attention. I can be human. And this is just the aspect of life, my mission and my purpose, all in line with helping people, inspire people, letting them know that you can do whatever you like. All right. But you do have to give yourself a plan. You have to give yourself the intention. You do have to surround yourself with maybe the world's best. So, Sig, as we begin to wrap up, I would love to get some final words from you. And then also, please tell the audience where they can find you and reach out to you.
Yeah, you bet. So you reminded me of, the one step at a time, the old phrase of how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. You can't eat the whole elephant at once. You have to have patience, persevere, and take one step at a time. So I think in closing, I'll just remind everyone that within each of us, within each of you listening, is the power and capacity and talents to be the world's best version of yourself. Do it. Give yourself that opportunity. The easiest thing, I think, is to just look internally and adopt the gratitude attitude. Be thankful for what you have today. Identify it, and then preach it, share it. I have a Post-it on my mirror that says, be the world's best. And that's there as a reminder to me when I go out into the world to tell people they're the world's best. And for me, it's become very natural now to say, you're the world's best. But you can say thank you. You can say you're fantastic. I appreciate that. There's a lot of genuine ways to do it. I got my coffee a few weeks ago from the barista that regularly makes my order. She had it ready before I got there. I just looked at her and I said, thanks. You're the world's best for having that ready. Smiled just like that. Just like that, Michael. Makes people feel good. It's an easy, simple thing to do. Because not only do you make that other person feel good, but you feel good in seeing their response, right? And making a little bit of a difference. So you can get in touch and learn more about the Be the World's Best attitude by going to LinkedIn. I'm on there personally, and then my business is on as Be the World's Best. Our website is betheworldsbest.com, and we're also on Facebook.
Perfect. And I'll make it easy for everyone. All the links will be right down below so people can follow you on their respective platforms, whichever one they love. Some people love Facebook, some people love LinkedIn, some people just do the old school.com. And I encourage people to just do some investigative work because it's a person like you say who can come along and spread those seeds and those bits of wisdoms and life experiences that can make someone truly understand, even if they don't truly understand what's happening. I think of one day there was a guy, I don't even know the guy, like it was my grandma's friend or something. He came to the house and he just told me a story. Like he felt compelled to tell me a story. He was a mentor, he was a guide, even though we only spoke once. And he told me about an incident where his son had passed away. And I was like, wow, like it was a shooting. It was like a gang thing gone wrong. And I was like, life is fleeting, so quickly. You talk about, 40,000 weeks, like many people are not looking that far. Many people are just kind of looking at one day, surviving one day, maybe look at what's going to happen tomorrow. And so they don't look at the possibilities of what can become, right? Becoming the world's best is a mindset saying, hey, I can be something different than what I am today. I can find my purpose. I can find my mission or my meaning. And we do have to be coachable. We have to do the investigative work, as I said, and we have to dare to say, you know what, there is more out there. So I encourage people not to wait for a hardship, a trauma, something negative to happen, even though most people won't. Maybe 80% of people will. But, if we can just shave down that number to maybe 60% of negative people, if they need that hardship, imagine the possibilities. And we're just going to be shifting the dynamic in what the world is going to be seeing versus waiting for something bad to happen. Well, let's be the good, right? Let's be the catalyst for some change. And so again, catalyst for change is right down below. Check out the links and begin that journey because your best life is just waiting around the corner. Thank you so much, Sig, for coming on and talking about your work.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. You're the world's best. Appreciate all the work you do for everyone.